There's a great quote that says, just because a man desires you, that doesn't mean he values you. All right? Desire and value, two different things. Sometimes they can go together, sometimes they're not. I pray that you receive the man who does value, who does respect you, who wants to honor you, who cherishes you, who loves you. And I believe you can and you will receive that, okay? But I want you to be able to recognize when that value is there, because so many women sometimes get blinded by the desire part. They get blinded by the man who is showing them attention, who is giving them time, but they're overlooking the fact that he is not operating as a man who truly values and respects them. And that can't be ignored, because without that, we cannot have a long-term, sustainable, successful, healthy relationship. Okay? So there are several things to consider. And one of the things to consider what will tell you that a man does value you is that he cares about your opinion. Okay? So I want to start off with this one because there's a couple angles we have to discuss here. I think initially, and let's focus on early on in a relationship, maybe even a dating process, I do believe that when a man is genuinely into a woman, values her, respects her, he cares about what she thinks. All right? He wants to get her input. I remember, it reminds me of when I was younger and I had a situation. Now, this was with a friend. So this wasn't necessarily a girlfriend dating situation, but I'm going to be real with y'all. I had some feelings there. Okay? And I would always ask for her opinion. Now, in this scenario, she would always respond with like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, boom, boom, boom. So she wouldn't give it out of fear of even giving the wrong advice or not confident about her position. And one day I had to like, hey, maybe not like that. I don't know why I did that gesture, but I had to stop her, right? And be like, hey, listen, if I ask you your opinion, I want your opinion. I don't expect you to be right. I don't expect a perfect answer. All I want is what you are thinking, what you are considering, what your perspective is. That's all right? And having that, I will admit, it was a stern talk, okay? Having that stern talk with her, because I want to let her know, like, for real, let's stop doing that. It fixed it. Like, she changed it. She started actually giving me her opinion. And that was important to me. And that's what I wanted. And I think any man who values you is going to want to hear from you. Now, the reason why I said there's multiple angles to consider here is because I have seen in many relationships, even in many marriages, where there comes a point that the man stops seeking or caring about the opinion of his partner. And sometimes, and mind you, you got to consider, was it always like this or did it shift this way? Because if it was always like this, then I would lean towards it's just the true connection wasn't there. There wasn't enough true value there. But if it shifted, then we can identify that something contributed to it going left. Okay? And one of those things, or a couple of those things to consider, is some men stop seeking the opinion of their partner because the opinion is always negative. All right? The opinion is always shooting down what they have to say, dismissing how they feel, right? Or always wanting them to do it their way, as in the woman's way. And if he doesn't do what she suggests, it creates a big old fight. So then he gets to a point of like, I don't want no trouble, so I'm just not even going to ask. I'm just going to do what I think is best. Okay? As well as sometimes in seeking the opinion and expressing certain things, the backlash or the reaction from it is not positive. And that again can also cause men to shut down in that regard. And so I want to encourage anyone who's already in a relationship and can acknowledge that they have done things like that at times, to don't just jump to, oh, he doesn't value me because he doesn't care about my opinion. I think it's first address the issue with him, and let's see, were these some underlying issues? And if we correct these underlying issues, can we now establish a healthy foundation of where he gets back to respecting, honoring, and desiring your opinion? If that can't fix it, or if we can't even identify the root issues, then that's a whole different story, all right? But outside of that, in general, the man who is seeking your opinion and input does value you and does care about how you feel. And real quick, let me just add this before we move on to the next point. Because I mentioned it where I see a lot of scenarios where the guy, he asks the woman's opinion and she gives it, and if he doesn't actually use it, she feels some kind of way, right? And she feels like her opinion is being dismissed rather than, no, he actually was considering it, but he came to his own different decision. Doesn't mean he doesn't value what you say and what you had said. It's just that sometimes he'll still make a different decision. So I just want to say to that woman who may have found herself in that type of a situation, like, we have to understand that an opinion is an opinion. They can use it or they can't, right? We can't get mad, but I do understand that if over time you're constantly being asked for your opinion and it's never used, I get it. Like, I think anybody, man or woman, will get to a point where it's like, why are you even asking me? You never do listen to what I suggest anyway. Okay. And I think if you reach that point, again, have a discussion. But sometimes, I have to say this, sometimes that just shows that maybe we don't have the alignment or compatibility that we think we have. That's a deeper discussion. I'll save it for a different video. All right. So another sign that shows a man does value you is he's mindful of how he speaks to you. Okay. So I believe wholeheartedly that genuine love, genuine interest, genuine desire, genuine value softens a man, so to speak. All right. And tends to lead him to be a little bit more delicate with this woman than he would be with other women. Now, let me say, I know of situations where though the man may be more delicate with her, he's still rough, okay? It reminds me of this couple once, this married couple I was coaching years ago, and the wife was like, he's too rough, and he lacks compassion in the way he speaks to me. And when I expressed to him, like, listen, man, you gotta be more compassionate, his response literally was, what the hell is compassionate? I don't even know what that means. Like, he did not understand the concept of being more considerate and compassionate in the way that he talked to his partner and the way that he handled certain situations with her. Now, I think I have to acknowledge and mention there were issues in that relationship. There were disconnects. So you can make the argument that that was just a symptom of there wasn't that deeper connection, that deeper love that maybe they thought was there or wanted to believe was there, okay? And that contributed to his struggle to connect with that quote-unquote softer side with her, right? They did work on it. It never really got to where it needed to get to. That's a whole nother discussion. But the point is, I do believe that in most cases, the man's going to be more mindful. Now, I think, again, huge key in this discussion is that you have to express to him how you like to be talked to. You have to express to him what you need. I believe that him valuing you is going to be him being considerate of your feelings. And he may not initially be aware that how he speaks to you may be a little rough. Okay? And when we say rough, I don't mean like he's being flat out verbally abusive, but you know what I mean? Some guys a little not as sensitive as they need to be when they talk to their woman, at least in the times that it calls for it, okay? Because if we're keeping it real, some women like a very dominant talking man, not a disrespectful man, but a dominant man. But you don't want him to be like that 24/7 to where he don't know how to pour into you in the right moments and be a little bit more delicate when necessary. And so you want to be able to communicate that and discuss that and also help him understand what that looks like. Okay? Because in the example of the married man who didn't understand compassion, he didn't understand what that looks like and what that looks like to her. All right? How she wants to be able to receive him and receive his words, so to speak. So you want to have that discussion and not jump to a negative conclusion if a man off the bat doesn't come out the gate being all super sweet, sensitive, or whatever. But I do think for most guys, they're going to try. They're going to naturally, again, be a little bit softer with you than the other women. I also think in being mindful of how they speak to you, because a man values you, he wants you in his life. Sometimes that value could be he wants you in his life as a friend. Sometimes that value could be girlfriend, potential wife. There's different scenarios, but the common denominator is he values you and your presence in his life. And so he's more mindful of how he speaks, because the last thing he wants to do is push you out of it. Okay? And that's why he's going to be a little bit more, considerate of what may cause a problem for you. Right? And whereas with someone else that he doesn't care if they walk away, it's like whatever, he's super reckless. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. It's definitely something to discuss, right? But it's definitely a sign that he values and respects you. All right, so next on this list, another sign or another thing a man will do when he values you as a woman is he will not try to change you, okay? Let's dive into this because I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying here. I think anyone who truly loves you and cares about you wants you to be the best version of yourself, okay? So will there be encouragement to grow in certain areas? Yes. Will there be encouragement to refine certain things? Yes, right? Or to add certain things to your repertoire, so to speak? Yes. But trying to completely change who you are speaks to him not valuing you, the woman, but him being more focused on what he thinks he can create with you. Okay? Now, some people may say there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, we all want to quote unquote mold our partner to some degree. I don't agree with that. Again, I agree with helping our partners grow and push them in the right direction and refining and improving, all that. But molding in the sense of changing someone. One, it's a big problem because I'm a firm believer that if what they're being molded into is not in alignment with who they truly are, there will be a conflict, all right? The conflict will start internally and it will start to show on the surface. And this is why you will have some situations where I've seen men who have gotten with women, sometimes even a younger woman, with the mentality of, I'm going to mold her, right? And at some point in the relationship, her true self is starting to come out. And so now, if she keeps suppressing it, she'll start to resent. She'll start to be unhappy. She will feel like she's trapped in a jail cell, right? Or if she starts to let it out, he will be resentful, like, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I taught you or showed you, whatever. What's going on? What kind of woman are you becoming? And the whole thing blows up. But it's because you shouldn't be trying to make people be something they're not. If anything, and what a man who values you, who you truly are, he likes it like that. Again, he may want better versions. We all want better versions of the people that we love. But the foundation of who you are, he honors, respects, and values. And there's no need and no reason that he's looking to change you. Now, I will say, it is probably less common for a man to try to change a woman. Like there's a quote I've said many times before. They say, a man marries a woman hoping she will never change. A woman marries a man hoping he will. All right. And of course, that doesn't mean it applies to every last person, but that is a common theme, okay, amongst a lot of people. So I don't think this issue of the man trying to change you is something that everyone's going to come across and deal with. But if you do come across it, to me, it's a red flag. It's an issue. It's like, okay, why are you not accepting of who I am and who's this person you're trying to push me to be? And you got to be real with yourself about, that doesn't work for me. Even if that means losing this person, because the reality is that so many people sacrifice themselves trying to hold on to this person that they believe they want, right? And again, that's not sustainable over the long run. So don't fall into that trap. Recognize when that's an issue, but the man who values you will not do that. He will embrace and love the person you truly are, and you two will be able to be in alignment with each other. All right, so I was just reminded of angle to this issue that I want to cover real quick. Okay. Now, again, I mentioned there's a difference between improving self versus changing who you are. But I think one of the problems is sometimes people think who they are is this lower version of self, so to speak. So, for example, let's just say a woman is very blunt, but she's blunt in a very rude way. Okay? She's not mindful of how she speaks to people and not mindful of how she speaks to her man. And to her, it's like, well, this is just the way I am. Deal with it. Suck it up, right? And then the man's trying to get you to address whatever the deeper issue is, because if you're like that, there's a deeper issue as to why you can't be mindful of how you talk, how you express yourself. There's something you need to resolve. There's probably something you need to heal from, whether you realize it or not. Him trying to get you to heal and improve in that area is not him trying to change you. Again, he's trying to get you to be the better version of self. But you have to let go of sometimes believing unhealthy versions of you are actually you. That's just not the case. They are a result of things you have gone through, and more than likely a result of things that you have not flushed out of your system, out of your spirit. So again, always be willing to identify and learn how to identify what is an improvable trait versus this is core to who I am as a person. This is part of my true character, okay? And even then, is this the best version or the higher version of that trait? Because if not, then there's still room to grow and improve. All right, so let's keep this thing going. And another sign or another thing a man will do when he truly values you is respect your boundaries. All right? Remember what I said earlier about when a man actually cares about a woman, likes her, values her, he values her presence in his life, and therefore he doesn't want to do something that's going to push her out of his life. And so when a man is aware of your boundaries, and that's the key word, aware, because you can't hold him accountable for crossing a boundary he never knew existed. And listen, I've seen it happen. I've seen women get mad at a man, even cut a man off for crossing a line that he was not aware was a problem. And that's wrong. Or that's not the healthy way to handle things, okay? So you want to make sure you've established what those boundaries are. You've had discussions. We understand it. Okay. And now, once the boundaries are there, if he crosses them, that's a problem. Now, let me also say this. There's a difference between a man who does not respect your boundaries and the man who gets caught up in a moment and crosses a line he shouldn't. Okay? Now, doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's okay, but I do think we have to always look at the overall picture when evaluating some of these things. Because the man who doesn't respect your boundaries is a habitual boundary crosser, okay? He's not just doing it once, and usually his behavior outside of this issue isn't great already. There's already a multitude of issues or multiple issues that we can identify that says something is wrong here or this may not be the guy for you. Whereas the guy who may get caught up in a moment is a man who is a great guy, who does what he's supposed to do, but we're human. And as human beings, it is possible for someone to lose sight of the moment. I've seen situations where, let's say, man comes home, something happened at work, he's already pissed off, mom called him about something else, she's stressing him out, and it's just this perfect storm to where now his woman comes to him and he snaps at her. But he's snapping not because of her, it's because a combination of everything else that's going on, and he did not manage and handle it correctly, okay? And he is remorseful, he is regretful, and he wants to correct it. And again, this is not a man who typically behaves like this. This is an out of character moment, so to speak. And we have to recognize it as such so that we can understand this is fixable, okay? And this is still a man that we can say, no, he does value you, but he made a mistake. But again, the guy who doesn't, completely different story. So establish those boundaries, discuss them, and I just feel the need to say real quick, make sure you know his boundaries too. Listen, and the reason why I'm laughing and saying that is because, like, I see a lot of women, they're establishing their boundaries with their man while crossing his. Okay? Not respecting his boundaries, but then if he does the same, oh, you go fly off the handle. It's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You gotta, if we're gonna have a discussion about boundaries, let's express them and let's receive them as well. And then once we receive them, we have to honor theirs as we want them to honor ours. That's how we create harmony. That's how we create healthy, long-lasting, successful relationships. All right, so before I continue real quick, if you want to get a copy of one of my books, if you got a personal question you need to ask or any question you need to ask that you need an answer to right away, coaching, you name it, you can find it all on my site, StephanSpeakShop.com. Click the link in the description or in the comments section and get everything that you need. It's all there. Trust me, you'll see tons of reviews, all the people benefiting from it. You're going to love it. Again, StephanSpeakShop.com. All right, so got a few more to go that I want to mention. And another thing that a man does when he values you is that he does not hide you, okay? And I don't know why I felt like this heaviness kind of hit me spiritually, because I feel like I felt some of y'all pain in that moment. Because I feel like there's some of y'all watching this right now who are dealing with that and have been trying to endure a man who has been hiding you and keeping you in secret, and on top of that, not treating you right. It reminds me of once I knew an individual, a client who was seeing a man, and the only time he would see her was in a hotel. And he wasn't going out with her. He wasn't taking her anywhere. And that was the only time he would link up with her. And she was dealing with, of course, I was trying to get her to leave the situation alone. But for various reasons, she was dealing with it or trying to, right? Even though she was not happy about it. And so quickly, I just want to say, I want to encourage any of you who are in this dynamic, you deserve better. You are worth more than that. Do not accept this behavior when you know it does not make you happy. It does not sit well with you. And you know deep inside you don't belong there. Okay? I don't want you to feel shame. I don't want you to beat yourself up because you have been in it. I just want you to now embrace the strength you have to move forward in the right direction. But to get back to the main point here is, yes, when a man truly values you and respects you, he's not trying to hide you. Okay? And I'll say, I don't know why. I feel like I have to say this. I was trying to avoid saying it. It was kind of hitting my spirit again. I do know that sometimes one of the issues that lead to a man hiding that I think we can have a discussion about, is it really that he doesn't value her, or is it deeper than that, is cultural conflict. And what I mean by cultural conflict is that you have some individuals who are in families that they expect their son to be with a certain kind of woman, and a woman that is from their culture, right? But yet he has caught feelings for a woman outside of that. And he struggles now to bring this woman that he does actually care about and does value to his family, because he is too afraid to face his family. That's not to say it's okay. That's not to say it should be accepted and continue to just deal with it. I'm just laying out, I like to lay out all possible scenarios, because when people hear these videos, I don't want to just take it and run and not consider that some situations require understanding the context of it. Okay. And so, yes, I think that's a situation that we can acknowledge it's still a problem without having to say, oh, well, he doesn't care about me. I think that's a deeper issue, and I think that's another one of those I should create a whole video about when dealing with cultural conflict in relationships and dating. But outside of that, the man who values you, he wants to show you off. He wants his friends to know who you are. He wants family to know who you are. I think, again, now another thing that just popped in my head, Lord. I know one of the reasons why some men may be hesitant to introduce a woman to his family is until he knows for sure we are headed in that direction of this is going to be the one I want to marry, I don't want to bring her to my family, because then I have to deal with the constant questions. What are y'all doing? When are you going to get married? What's going on? And for some guys, they don't want to deal with that. Again, I am not saying that makes it okay or acceptable, because if you as a woman feel like this is a problem for you, then you have to express that, and he has to be willing to honor it. Okay? I'm just explaining a potential scenario where I've seen this play out. Okay? Outside of those two examples, unless God hits me with something else, if he values you, he doesn't have a desire to hire you. He wants people to see who you are. He's proud of dating you, and you will not have a conflict in this area with him. But again, always be willing to first talk about the issue, address it, because the real value shows itself with the way he handles how you feel about things, how he responds to it, how he corrects the issue, and how he brings peace to you about the problem. All right, so here's another one. Another sign that a man values you is that he is willing to compromise with you. Okay? So men who only want it their way or the highway, while still expecting you to stay around and be with them and pour into them, that is a red flag. That is a man who does not value and respect you enough for you to be entertaining this individual. Men who value you are the opposite. They're much more accommodating. Sometimes we could argue too accommodating. Y'all may not like that reality, but I've seen it where some men bend over backwards and do too much trying to keep this woman happy. And sometimes it leads into them becoming a yes man, which, let's be real, that's not really attractive when he becomes just a yes man to you. Okay. Some of y'all may be like, give me the yes man. Fine. You can have that if you want. But for a lot of women, I think you can agree that's not what you really want. But to the point I was making, he is more willing to be accommodating. He is more willing to be compromising. And again, sometimes even sacrifice what he would prefer in order to make you happy. Now, I'm a big believer that if we want sustainable, healthy relationships, it has to go both ways. One person should not be compromising to the point where they're sacrificing and now they're not truly happy with the result, but they're just so obsessed with keeping you. And like I said earlier, the man who values you wants you in his life, so he becomes more willing to do what it takes to keep you in his life. Plain and simple. But that can create the wrong foundation if it becomes a very one-sided type of approach to things. Okay? So you both have to be willing, and I would hope that if you are genuinely into this man, I do believe that in most cases this will be the case, you are not going to take advantage of his willingness to compromise. You're not going to take advantage of him being so accommodating. Though, let's be real, you're human. We're all human. Sometimes you might. Sometimes you might just run away with it or take advantage because you can't. But ideally, we don't want it to get to that point. But bottom line, not to drag this point on, he's willing to compromise. He's willing to work with you. He's willing to find a middle ground. And let me just say this before I move on to the final point. Compromise, because this is the key. Compromise is when we find a middle ground that we both can be good with. All right? If one of us is not good, then this is not a compromise. This is a problem in many cases. We can say it's a sacrifice, and there's going to be some instances where sacrifices are necessary or good for the ultimate success of this relationship, but compromise is better because we can both walk away feeling good about it. We may not have gotten the exact 100% thing we were aiming for, but we got enough on both sides to where it's like, all right, this works, we're cool, we move forward. All right, so now last but not least, another sign that a man values you is that he has a willingness to resolve conflict with you. So again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. The man who values you wants you in his life, and he doesn't want to risk losing you. So when there is actual conflict, he is willing to address it. Now, I do think that sometimes some men don't know how to handle the conflict or don't know how to properly resolve it. And so there are at times this attempt to kind of brush past it and just like, let's just move forward, or say I'm sorry and just, all right, cool, let's just move forward, because again, he doesn't know how to deal with it. But I think that if you, I think that if you express genuine concern and a genuine issue, he's going to be willing to hear you out. He's going to be willing to discuss it with you. And the easier we can make it for him to understand what we need to do to fix this or make things better, the better. Because then again, there's no excuse for him to be like, well, I didn't know what exactly was going to take for us to improve on this situation. But when you're clear with him, all right, he's either going to do it or he's not. And that's the approach you want to take. So he's going to have that willingness. He may not always have that know-how. All right. And that's why conversation is so important, and expressing ourselves is so important. But he will be willing. And I think with all the things that we mentioned on the list, he'll be willing to be mindful of how he talks to you. He's not going to just ignore the issue. But also, again, remember that conflict resolution, or how should I say this? If he's struggling with communication, because some men struggle with that, we have to first always look at, okay, is this a guy who has not been good in this relationship in general, plus struggles with communication? Because then that's like, all right, what are we really doing here? Is this really the right person for you? Versus this has been a great guy, he does everything right, but this is an area that he struggles. All right, now let's dive deeper and figure out how we can improve in this area. And again, with him valuing you, I believe he will have a willingness, if he understands what that path looks like, or what the work looks like to make this better. And then let's see if we can get this fixed and get back on the right track and get back on the same page. But at the end of the day, he will have the willingness to resolve the conflict, and that's what matters. And so I just want to say this real quick, because we're talking about how a man values you, but make sure you value yourself. A lot of women accept the man who doesn't have that value, respect, or love for them because they don't have a value for self needed to, one, see things for what it is, or be able to walk away from a man who does not have that for them. Okay? So it always starts with you. And, you know, me being a believer, getting in tune with your spirit, getting in tune with God so that they can guide you towards understanding when you need to walk away from a situation or you need to work with a situation is going to be extremely helpful. So pour into you, heal, love yourself, and set yourself up to receive the relationship and man that is truly best for you. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on Men Are Very Attracted to These 5 Things That Set You Apart from Other Women. If she can correct that, it'd be a game changer for her, okay? And so for a lot of women, learn that. If you watch my videos, I'm always talking about
We'll be right back.